on to Bridging the Green Skills Gap, Education, Workforce Transition and Policy. We're very excited to be here in light of London Climate Action Week, which is taking place as we speak. We thought it would be a timely moment to explore one of the most urgent topics that's still overlooked, the challenge in the sustainability transition, ensuring we have the talent, leadership and systems in place to deliver on climate ambition. As we all know, global commitments to decarbonisation are growing, and as such, so is the demand for new skills, not only technical capabilities, but also leadership, systems thinking, and cross-sector collaboration. Yet education systems, policy frameworks, and workforce development efforts have often been struggling to keep up with pace with this rapidly evolving landscape. So today we're really excited to explore a couple of different issues, such as how can governments build enabling policy environments for green skills? What are employers really looking for when hiring green roles? What is the role of leadership and soft skills in driving meaningful change? And why is foundational climate education like carbon literacy critical across all sectors? So today I'm joined by four fantastic panelists who will bring diverse perspectives from policy, recruitment, education, and development. We'll begin with opening remarks from each speaker to learn a bit more about you, and we'll follow with some questions. Please feel free to drop Q&As in the chat. We'd love to hear from you all as well. So if we could start with a round of introductions, maybe Marina, you could kick off.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Marina Gil Velasco, and I work for an European Climate Innovation Agency and community called Climate. My role is the Climate Academy lead, and I will be talking a little bit about our experience in working in the Green Skills Hub and how we address it through capacity building.
Thank you, Marina. Romain?
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're watching from. So my name is Romain. I work for an EU agency called ETF, and we look at the best practice inside the EU and support reforms in low and mid-income economies based on EU best practice. And I hope I can share some of our insights today.
Thank you, Romain. Simon?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Simon Bangs. I work as a recruiter who helps organizations to hire environmental sustainability professionals. I'm based in the UAE and we're mainly focused here in the Middle East.
Thank you, Simon. And David?
Hi, everyone. I'm David May. I teach at Zayed University here in Dubai, and I also work for the UN's Principles Responsible Management Education organization. I'm their climate lead for the Middle East chapter, and I also deliver carbon literacy training.
Amazing. So I'm really, really excited about this panel. I think we have some very diverse perspectives and really are covering all angles when it comes to green skills, the green skills conversation. I'd love to start with Romain and just talking a little bit about policy. So the kind of broader view on things. So it'd be really appreciated if you could talk to us about, you work on national level policy, and where have you seen the most effective kind of changes in driving green skills?
Okay, so what we do see is that, and that comes as no surprise, that the policy framework needs to be integrated. And this is true for the green transition, but it's also true for basically any public policy dimension. So it means that you combine education reforms with labor market activation, and you also empower that collaboration through financial incentives. What this means is that you first need to embed your green skills needs into your national strategies. And this could be, the most obvious one, of course, is the NDCs, the National Determined Contributions. Look at which sectors in the NDCs are likely to grow quickest, and then retro-engineer your skilling needs from that. So, I mean, I took the example of the national determined contributions, but it could be a clean industrial plans. It could be any sectoral goal, as long as it's clean, of course. Then you also, one of the important elements is also to have some labor market intelligence, is often referred to as labor market intelligence. But what this means is that your policies are evidence-based, so that you have conducted analysis of what are the current supply of skills relevant to a certain sector. How is that sector likely to grow, and therefore what skills demand is likely to grow from it. Skills foresights, sometimes that's called. So that's another really important element, because that allows you to understand where you're going, and you're not just throwing green skills in the dark. You're looking at which sectors need that most. The other thing, of course, is to green up the education system, so including all levels: primary, secondary, vet, tertiary. Looking at updating curricula, creating new curricula if necessary. Often it is. Also phasing out the curricula which are no longer in need. Embed sustainability within these curricula, and you mentioned it during your intro. This refers to the green technical skills, the ability to deploy green tech, but it's also, as you mentioned very eloquently, leadership, systems thinking, and many other, which are often referred to as enabling skills or horizontal skills. These are actually very important. And naturally, that has the consequence of needing teachers that were trained. So teacher training is also an important dimension. Increasingly, we also find that modular learning, so the idea of micro-credentials, so that you learn, you do micro-learnings, but you're able to stack them up into certifications, particularly for adults. Because one of the things we see is that, of course, younger generations need to develop these green skills, but a lot of the current workforce needs to do that even before they retire. So maybe if you have like another 10 or 20 years on the labor market, well, you need to upskill. And so micro-credentials are becoming very popular for that purpose, for the purpose of adult learning. The other thing that's really important is stakeholder management, which is no surprise. That's necessary for any policy area. But in this particular case, the collaboration between education, environment, labor, and industry is really a key dimension of the successful policies that we have been monitoring from our end. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you. I think that's a great start, a great way to frame the conversation. Marina, you're an expert in kind of climate leadership and have been building a course specifically around that. I'm wondering what leadership qualities and soft skills are becoming indispensable for sustainability professionals. And I just want to ask, could you just put the microphone slightly closer to your mouth? Because I think during the intro, we couldn't quite hear you well enough.
Okay, I hope that's better now.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. And actually, I was feeling really connected with what Romain was saying just now, and the different elements that we have been working at Climate Kick. So I think when we talk about the green skills gap, we should not focus only on technical expertise, but also in what we call soft skills. But I think you refer to it as the transversal and horizontal skills, right? We believe that we need a leader to really possess this sort of holistic set of qualities and soft skills. So I will highlight 5 top ones. So I think we need to have leaders really self-aware and familiar with systems thinking. So to really make sure that when they are addressing any challenge, this should not be done in silos, so that to make sure that they take into account every other system that influence the challenge they are working on. And that means to connect with the social, economic, and political systems of such a challenge. Then collaboration and partnership, which is very connected with the stakeholder management that you were talking about, Roman. I think for us, we think that climate change is a team sport, so we really need leaders to be able to build strong partnerships across diverse sectors. So they really have to have active listening capacity, empathetic. They need to be empathetic and be able to really speak the language that mobilize the different stakeholders that they need to work with. Then to be flexible, to have a flexibility mindset in their mindset is also quite important, as the climate landscape is really unpredictable and constantly changing. So they need to be able to feel comfortable in the ambiguity, and also to don't be afraid of failure, as there is where they can learn the most. And then I think emotional intelligence and resilience is also quite important, very connected with the flexibility of mindset, but they just need to be able to build trust with the network, with the different ecosystems that they work with, and to process this high emotional intelligence that to foster this productive relationship within the ecosystem that they work with.
Marina, it's very comprehensive. We've heard from two experts here on what the needs are when it comes to green skills. But Simon, I'm wondering, what are the employers actually asking for? Does this map according to what the market is asking for?
It's a big question, and it comes down to, first of all, what type of employer are you talking about? Because obviously, if you're talking about a government employer, that's looking at the macro scale. They are looking at the long-term development of industry. They're looking at how we can reskill and reposition whole economies. Whilst once you come down to an individual private sector company, they'll normally take a much more kind of pragmatic view as to what is the best way for us to hit our goals and to hit our objectives from that side. The green skills, broadly, we'll talk about breaking down to either the direct or the indirect jobs, and the types of skills that different organisations need will therefore vary. Whether you're talking about something very clear and direct, like the renewable energy sector, whether you're talking about decarbonisation aspects, that's quite different in terms of the profile of the skills that organisations will be looking at, compared to if you're looking at a phased approach with regards to kind of corporate sustainability for an entity in that sense. So, building upon what the likes of Romain and Marina were both saying, there is that pragmatic element where the private sector will look to reskill people when it is in their best interest, in the best interest of that particular organisation. So we see it in the Middle East, where the likes of the oil and gas sector is still pretty dominant in many senses, but there are also new economies and sectors which are coming to scale, such as the hydrogen. And okay, you've got the blue, the brown, the green hydrogen, and different colours of projects that come in. But we are already seeing quite significant scaling up of national level ambition, particularly I'd probably say in Saudi and in Oman, where there is some very significant backing and thousands of jobs which are being created within the hydrogen sector in those places. And often they will help by repurposing or reskilling people who have come out of a conventional energy industry. So I can talk all day. I'll stop there for now, and you can come back with questions if you want in a moment.
Thank you, Simon. David, where does carbon literacy fit into all of this, and why is it an important baseline for sustainability professionals to start with?
Okay, good question. Thanks, Maz. I think carbon literacy fits in here because it's like, I always think of it as like sustainability 101. It's a great starting point. So it's designed for organizations and people that don't necessarily have any background in sustainability or environmental kind of education. So it's got that kind of baseline climate science, and then it moves on to carbon footprinting, so we get an idea of our impact. And then the kind of end point is kind of pledges to action, both individual and organizational. So it gives people and companies kind of a space to think about how they're going to move, the direction they're going to move their sustainability, education, learning, or their strategy. I think the other key thing for carbon literacy is it's sectoral, right? There's carbon literacy for hotels, carbon literacy for accounting, carbon literacy for finance. So it's sector specific. So within the general kind of knowledge of climate and carbon footprinting, it's also got sector specific reference. So in that space, it's kind of tailor-made, or it's designed to be tailor-made to include skills or areas either organizations or sectors want to focus on. So it's a good balancing act, right? It gives you the general introduction, your starting point, and also is also designed to be relevant to the sector it's being delivered in. So it's not too one size fits all. So I think that's the kind of the big advantage of it. And also, like I said, it's not dark green, it's pretty light green. Therefore, it's a nice starting point to get kind of discussion or kind of an introduction going in organizations. So that's it. I'd say it's two big advantages. It's easy to get into, but it's also nicely specific to the sectors that it's being delivered in.
Thanks, David. Yeah, it's a really great starting point for a lot of people. Just going back to that kind of macro view, though, how are governments working with industry, Romain, around this topic of green skills? Are there any kind of strong collaborations going, and how are they being kind of impactful and scalable?
There's many examples of successful collaborations between government and industry. From our end, we think it's absolutely crucial that this works. In fact, if you look at the countries that are most advanced in terms of decarbonization, they're also the countries that have the most advanced dual learning systems, apprenticeship systems. This is, if we look at Europe, it's mostly Scandinavia and Germany, Austria, Switzerland. These countries have got a culture of collaboration between education and industry, which clearly shows successful results. And we also see that countries that don't do that are the ones that lag behind. And so let me explain just quickly why it's important, because we know it is, and I think most of the audience will appreciate that. But just to unpack why it's important is because both these institutions, I'm going to call it like that, they bring unique capabilities. Government can take directives, decides on policies, decides on funding, stirs which sectors will be treated as a priority on their net zero, on the country's net zero path. And so these are clearly very important decision points. But then the industry will inevitably be better informed, more familiar with the latest technology developments, with the latest market requirements. And so the idea is that the learning should happen as much as possible within the industry. And that allows the learners to be job ready, basically, rather than treat the latest developments in green tech from a conceptual perspective. Sure, that is relevant, but you need to get your hands dirty and play around with the latest battery systems, with the latest panels, solar panels, etc. This really makes a big difference. So one of the first things that they do is to agree on what they mean by green skills, because I don't want to open up the Pandora's box, but green skills can mean so many different things depending on who you ask. And it's really important that government and industries, at least at sector level, decide, okay, what do we mean exactly? Because once they agree on that, then they can take better decisions on how to roll that out. So that's one first step that must be taken, and there's already tools out there available to do exactly that. I mean, there's the European system is called ESCO, European Standards and Qualification something. I forget what the O stands for, apologies. But the UK, they have the NOS. In the US, there's the OneNet. There's already all these systems that need to be used so that you label what you call green skills out of this basically phone book of skills. And then transfer that to the national qualification frameworks so that when people develop these skills, that corresponds to a new qualification. And that may sound a little bit cumbersome and excessively administrative, and in some ways it is, but that is actually a very important first step, because if you don't agree on that, you're likely to diverge and fragment your efforts. The other reason is that the industry is best positioned to ensure that learners get hands-on experience. No school ever can keep up with green tech developments. They cannot afford to buy the latest battery or the latest heat pump, because 6 months later there will be a new one. So they need to understand that, and I think in many cases they do. But who can take that up is the industry, to make sure that they organize apprenticeships so that the learners, once they've covered the foundational skills and the conceptual understanding, then they come in industry settings and learn how to operate this technology. This collaboration is an absolute essential aspect of green skills, particularly to do with the technical green skills. So when it comes to some of the more green competences or the green mindset, which Marina explained a little bit in her introduction, that's somewhere else. But when it comes to the pure technicality of advancing technology so that we can reduce our carbon prints at the level of a sector, the role of work-based learning is absolutely essential. And then, of course, the governments can also decide through their funding mechanisms to promote certain sectors, but also, and possibly most importantly, ensure that the fair transition principles are adhered to, meaning that the funding cannot just go to urban centers. It needs to also address the needs of the rural population and vulnerable groups. If you skip them from these initiatives, then it's not a fair transition. So that defeats the point. I'll leave it at that.
100%. I think you made a great point there that, green skills is such a broad and, poorly defined term that really needs, more work to understand what it is and to unpack that. Marina, I know you've been working very closely on the kind of soft skills element, particularly from a leadership perspective. I'd love to know kind of what can, education and training providers do to better prepare climate leaders for navigating some of the complexity of climate change, in particular the uncertainty and ambiguity that it brings.
Thank you. I think it's a really good question and not easy to answer, but it's true that it really goes to the heart of what we have been working on for the last years with the Climate Kick Academy. So I'm going to build a lot, I feel really connected again with what Romain was telling, and I think something that, based on our experience, really worked very well is to embrace this experiential and problem-based learning. So to really make sure that, the content, the capacities that are built is not only based on theoretical knowledge, but also on real case studies. So that if the leaders could learn by practicing, so really learning by doing, that's the best way how any human really, learns and keep what you are, like the stimulation and the capacity to maintain it is way higher. Then I would say this, just keep repeating myself, but this cross-sector collaboration, which is very connected with the system thinking approach, to avoid at all cases to operate in silos. And I think, again, by demonstrating with real case studies how practicing the systemic approach and the cross collaboration, the results that this has brought really helps. So what we do in our case is really to combine the theory with real projects that we have on the ground in Europe and beyond, and really to bring the real individuals that are facing the challenge that can really tell the story to leaders. I think I would also add the future literacy capacity. I mean, to try to integrate that angle is really interesting, so that leaders can at least start to practice different mental models and try to identify leverage point of change and anticipate potential future scenarios. And I would say, lastly, to emphasize the continuous learning. So basically, I really, I think it was mentioned earlier by almost everyone, that is not only about education for young people, but also professionals who are have been working on, have been doing their job for many years, but they have to be upskill or reskill. So to really bring that mindset shift in lifelong learning and keep individuals with this curiosity, and mostly to really give them the tools to be able to continue to adapt their capacities to what is coming up. I think is really important.
Can I just jump in there, Maz?
Yeah, please do, David.
Thanks. I just echo what Marina was saying. At Zayed University in Dubai, we have, I work at the College of Interdisciplinary Studies, and our new sustainability degree is a bachelor's in sustainable enterprise. And one of the kind of really important things for us is that it's interdisciplinary. It involves, IT, business, environment, and as well as in that kind of mixed or eclectic environment, we've been kind of pushing or pioneering a lot of industry partnerships, even from year one for our students. So I think that's really fundamental to get students involved in real world experience. And we always talk about, when we're talking about our college, that it's the idea of solving these wicked problems that we face in the world that aren't just a single problem of a technical problem, but there's a whole mixture of factors that they connect to. So that idea of interdisciplinarity and connections to industry, I think, are super important in trying to kind of develop graduates, or develop skills that people can hit the ground running with when they enter the workforce. So yeah, that's really important point that Marina made.
Definitely. Simon, are you seeing people, and I liked the term that Romain used, which was job ready. When you're speaking with people in this space, can you describe to us what someone who is job ready looks like in this, this area?
What is job ready? I mean, it's going to come down, again, if we focus in upon the private sector, to hone the conversation, that most of the organizations will take that pragmatic approach. But in the ideal world, we'd say every single company will focus upon the triple bottom line, they'll focus upon them equally, and they'll look to have an impact across all of them. That's not necessarily the case for every single organization. There is a realism world where organizations would often want people to do specific functions at different points in time. It will come down to, at times, kind of the maturity of the company and their approach to sustainability. I mean, we're talking here from the UAE, which is behind the curve compared to Europe, and most of the world is behind the curve, certainly from a regulatory and from a market driver perspective. So there are a lot of organizations that are still in a discovery mode at the moment. And then it's also, what is an organization looking to achieve with regards to sustainability, or why are they doing it? If you're doing it purely out of regulatory compliance, that's quite a different set of expectations that you have compared to if you have a financial driver, you see other cost benefits by doing so, and that will then drive the skills that they want new staff to have. So in the ideal world, we'd see a direct alignment between what every single organization wants and what every single person can do and wants to do. And that wants to do is an important third part, because it's a case of people buying into the narrative of actually the impact they can make. Most people who are working in sustainability in one way, shape, or form have a deep-seated interest in making the world a better place. And you can address that in many, many different ways and different topics, but it's feeling like you're making an incremental improvement in situations. And so somebody needs to want to do that and to see the benefit of doing that. And that needs an enabling environment. So it needs the company to buy into it. Ideally, that company then sits within a sector where there is an opportunity and sits within a broader economy. So the other quick point I was just thinking of when Romain was talking about kind of the value of collaboration within the Middle East. Well, historically, there has been an approach to import talent, particularly kind of the hard technical skills, whenever possible, that the average organization will be in a rush for as close to the perfect person as possible in as short a time period as possible. That doesn't lead into a long-term mindset where you're going to slowly train, develop people. Now that is changing, certainly with increased focus upon localization, whether it be upon local Emiratis, Saudi nationals, Omanis, whoever getting into the workforce. But equally, there is an active role in terms of collaboration between other countries who are helping the companies from their region come to the Middle East and actually see economic value in doing so. So there is, for example, there's an EU GCC partnership, specifically around clean energy, where they're looking to bring some of the lessons that have been learned in the likes of the EU and bring those lessons learned, but also bring opportunity for those companies to come to the Middle East and to partner with the local governments here who are actually saying, look, we've got, a relatively strong ambition. We're happy to finance this and to drive this forward. And so you see, active collaboration. I mean, the Dutch government come to mind with the Dutch embassy around a lot of the agri-tech side and water aspects. Equally, there's been various German companies, Italian companies that have been brought in on the back of trade missions coming in from those countries to help develop projects in the region. So that then adds a slightly different angle to then those companies are coming to the region and are then looking at local skills and blending together the expertise and the track record of what's been done elsewhere in the world with the understanding of how to do it within a local context, whether it be in the UAE, in Oman, in Saudi, or wherever. I mean, that's a message that's true whether you're going to Uganda or Costa Rica in that sense as well.
Yeah, I think they need Romain's advice actually on how to build the employment market here, because as you say, a lot of it is imported, but there's a lot of desire for people to be working in this space and a lot of desire for people to be upskilled. Romain, did you want to respond to that?
To unmute. Yeah, I think Simon makes a good point, an important one, because which has been reflected in the previous interventions, the importance of being sector specific. And when we discuss green skills, they really are different. If you're working in the hydrogen sector, whichever color it is, that you could even say those are subsectors, whether it's blue or gray. In renewable energy, broadly speaking, battery sector. These are very specific, where you are asked as an employee, as a worker there, to understand the technology and be able to deploy it effectively. But there's other sectors where green skills will look very different, and I'm thinking, for example, of the agri-tech. Simon just mentioned that, but also textile. So, for example, in the textile industry, which is a huge employer worldwide, it's really a very, very large sector globally, and they need to go circular. I mean, I don't need to explain now why fast fashion is problematic. We all know that. But so they're all aiming to become more circular, and therefore they need to disrupt this linear approach that they've been having for decades, and clearly that takes different skills than deploying solar panels on a hotel roof. that's really a different job. You need that systems thinking. You need to appreciate the complexity, as David mentioned. Understand the carbon cycles. Yeah, carbon literacy for sure. That will be the basis of your professional decisions. But the set of skills that you will require to be a talented agent of change in the textile industry is different than from hydrogen. And just to finish my train of thought on the agri-tech, now the challenge is to grow food with less water or no water at all. In some cases, it's almost reached science fiction level. But it's also in countries where they still have rain to be regenerative. So you grow lots of produces. It could be timber through forest or agriculture, food produce, while you regenerate the environment simultaneously. And clearly, these are different knowledges, attitudes, and competences that come into play. So the sector setting really matters when we have this conversation.
100%. Did anyone want to jump in on that in response, just before I go on to the next question?
I'll quickly just add in, but I mean, David talks about from an individual person's perspective that one of the easiest and the most logical first steps is around carbon literacy. I'd also say that's true for a company, for a corporate as well. That one of the first things they will look to do. Look, one of the values of a lot of carbon is the quantitative value it has, but it has a relatively objective, simple number that people can understand. Okay, we did this last year, we're going to do this year. They can see a simple trajectory. The quantitative aspect has a strong appeal to a lot of organizations, particularly those who are wanting to make sure they're not being accused of greenwash or just of an evolved CSR aspect from that side.
Yeah. David, are you seeing that? Are you seeing a demand from corporates to really understand their carbon footprint and know more about that?
Starting to see inquiries and an interest, but like full deployment, not personally, but I think it's starting to happen. And certainly, like as Simon says, like that accounting and metrics is going to be really important, right? Just so get a benchmark and actually see things that are measurable and have something that obviously companies want to be able to track and measure. That I think that definitely is.
Definitely, when it comes to ESG reporting and how we're kind of working with businesses, they're very interested in the environmental element from a KPI perspective. It's much more measurable, data-driven than some of the other elements of ESG, which can be harder to define. But yeah, that's really interesting. I think also I just want to bring it back to the topic of climate leadership, because it's so important that, within corporates, there is that leadership driving things from the top. And just go back to Marina and kind of understand what in your view differentiates a really solid climate leader within a corporation.
Yes, I think also just building on what David, Simon, and Romain have been saying, to be honest, I think it's mostly about mindset shift. So there are different elements that that you can observe in that on leaders who are really making a change and those who are struggling a little bit more. So I think first of all, they need to be really to excel at building broad coalitions, to being able to bring to the table different stakeholders, and mostly to inspire this collective action. So I think a bit of being present in the era that we are, so that really a leader is someone that doesn't want to shine alone, but it wants the whole team, the whole set of people that she works with to excel on this together. And then I think they have to really sort of embrace this uncertainty that the climate context and the climate change has within it. So and really be able to fail in their practice and experimentation and learn from it. So really to this curiosity for experiment and capacity to learn from it really is a very, very interesting learning element. And from our experience, we also try to inspire them in being able to see the bigger picture. So to don't focus only in the short-term goals, but to try to visualize what do they want to achieve long term, and really design a strategy that can bring them to that point, being holistic and strategic about it. And to keep present that driving climate action is not is a marathon, but not a sprint, so that they really have this determination to remain committed to the different pushbacks and resistance, and also the really often slow pace that change can have. But if they are really committed to the cause and just take it with perseverance, they can see a change.
Yeah, I love that lifelong learning element, and with all kind of education, right? We're not just learning things at one point in our life. It's a journey that can be built over our career. I also love what you said about sustainable mindset, because that's also foundational, right? It kind of goes parallel with the carbon literacy, and actually a lot of the carbon literacy course is around that sustainable mindset, isn't it, David?
Yeah, and like systems thinking, sustainability mindset, seeing how things are interconnected, and these are all really important. And especially from my point of view, working in education, obviously the earlier these values are kind of highlighted or to people, then it makes all the decision making that will cascade on from that, hopefully much more likely to go in the right direction. So yeah. Also, I think we've been going for 40 minutes and nobody has said every job is a sustainability job. Yes.
I'm glad you said it, David. You put it out there. We all know.
Thank you.
Great. Well, as you say, we've been going for 40 minutes, and I don't want to take too much of your time. I'll just kind of wrap up with a couple more questions, particularly just kind of focusing on how can we make this pursuit of green skills more meaningful, and and to kind of avoid greenwashing if possible. So, Romain, kind of what avoiding greenwashing exercises and ensuring that green initiatives are authentic?
Yeah, that's a really timely question for those who follow European current affairs. There's ongoing this very day some hard discussions on greenwashing directive. So as much as we all know it's a very, very real phenomena, I want to say that I'm not aware of any green skills programs that really fit that description. However, because that would mean that it was intentionally deceiving. And I think in most cases, it's not intentionally deceiving. They're not trying to greenwash. They're just not doing the right thing, and not deploying skills in a manner that translates into sustainability outcomes and employability, the two sides of the same coin. We need to decarbonize, but be fair to our population too. So one thing that I would recommend is to look at the small print and do these trainings or this green skills deployment program. Does it fit into a skills demand framework? Is there evidence that they're training for skills that are necessary on the job market? This may seem like an obvious point, but it's not always clear where the choice in the skills deployment comes from. Sometimes it's just because we had that teacher available. So it needs to go much further than that. The training for training's sake doesn't support anyone. It just wastes money. But so consider and sorry to insist on the job ready issue, but I think people take trainings because they want a better job or a different job. So the transition between the learning and the earning needs to be clear. So if I take that training, what do I get out of it in terms of employability prospects? I think that really is important. But also you look at the training and see whether that fits into the decarbonization efforts of a certain sector. Will it actually contribute to reducing carbon footprint? I think if you ask these three questions, you already probably filtered out the programs that are not worth your time. But it's a very important question. Greenwashing is a very real phenomenon. I mean, we talked earlier about how firms and industry is greening up its act, their act, and often that is due to regulatory pressure, but sometimes it's also due to clients and their markets demands. For example, you have increasingly available organically produced food, and that's not because of regulatory pressure. It's because consumers want that. So I think the industry understands that, and they're likely to sometimes kind of tell the clients what they want to hear. But so always be cautious and critical when you see climate friendly or eco-friendly or carbon neutral. These are terms that are not regulated, that can be basically used by anyone, and that affects the green skills deployment programs too. And lastly, what I think is really important, and sorry, I really need to insist on the fair transition principles. These courses need to be available to vulnerable groups, to women particularly. We didn't talk about that, but women are largely excluded from the green revolution employment boom for now, and that's clearly problematic. So whatever green skills deployment program aims to achieve, it certainly needs to consider the gender perspective, also look at people in rural areas, look at people who are in vulnerable situations, and help them not only learn, of course, that's the point, obviously, but also to understand it is called career education, understand what kind of career path may I get into if I do such and such training? What kind of employment opportunities open up locally or regionally or further away if I take such and such training? Looking at the transition to employment, I think really matters too. Those would be my answer.
Really great advice. I think I haven't heard a lot of that before, so it's really insightful. Thank you. I just want to open the floor to everyone else as well. You'll see there's a question mark bubble at the bottom with live Q&A. So if you have any questions for the panelists, then please drop your questions in there. We do have a couple already. First one of which is, are there any sectors that you're seeing a lot of growth in when it comes to sustainability? Maybe Marina, you're a good person to ask, given your kind of focus on climate leadership and your new program that you're launching.
Yes. So how can we conclude? I mean, this is a very good question. I think the way to prepare them to be the resilient and flexible is really through practices this openness in mindset shift. So to really give them the right tools so that they can practice the theory, so they bring the theory into practice. So I think that is actually when you face them with real challenges that are happening on the real world, and they have to find a solution, and face with those who are living with these challenges, I think that is really helpful. So I think just building on what we have been discussing today to try to bring this apprenticeship or like sort of practice experience into the learning space is really important, both for young students but also for professionals. We have tested it with professionals, where actually in the program it was a two-way learning. So you will bring someone who is really experienced in something in a sector into a really different sector, so that it's not just who goes to the company or the public administration who learn, but they actually can exchange knowledge between them. So I think also this bringing them out of their comfort zone into something into an area or a space where they are not really faced to normally.
Great. I think you were answering our first question there, but that was a very comprehensive response around resilience and flexibility. Does anyone else have anything to add on onto Marina's amazing points there?
May I?
Yes, please.
So to the question that says any sectors you're seeing a lot of growth and sustainability, the answer to that is it depends on the country. Different countries have different net zero path, which require expansion of certain sectors. So if depending on where you are or where you want to work, look at the net zero path for that country, that region, that city, and figure out which are the sectors that are likely to grow most. And that's it's actually not as complicated as it sounds. You can do that quite easily. But what we see for now, at least in the countries of Western Europe, is that waste management, water management, renewable energy. These are sectors that are like basically doubling up their employment every year, and have skills gap. So certainly somewhere to look into.
Yeah. From our research. Oh, sorry. I was just going to add, since it's London Climate Week, just a bit of insights from our research, doing some global analysis as well. One of the key themes that came out in the UK was, obviously, given that the UK has so many old buildings and there's such a need to, improve energy efficiencies and things. But Simon, you have first-hand market of the first-hand sight of the market here as well. So please tell us your perspective.
Well, no, but actually what you were starting to say about old buildings in the UK, it's exactly what the point I was going to make, in the sense that what you also need, that if you want private sector to invest in the training and the development of skills, then they need certainty and clear signal from government. So look, there is a market here. It is worthwhile you spending the time and investment to train and develop these people. As well, because when you see either politics or an oscillation, a variance in terms of level of commitment from governments, whether they're going to roll through with certain programs, private sector starts to become much more nervous about it, and 9 times out of 10 they'll go on the cautious side, and they won't necessarily invest. So having that certainty is really, really clear. And in the case of the UK building side, they've been talking for a good decade about the easy, low-hanging fruit that is tackling the energy management gap in residential housing. And it's still a challenge. It was a challenge 10 years ago. I don't feel too positive that it's not going to be a challenge in 10 years' time. So it's having that certainty in the markets. And equally, I mean, look, I don't want to glamorize the UAE because I don't get everything right, but when we look at what's happened with some of the record low prices for solar and for clean energy in the region, they said, look, this is the first project, then there's going to be a second, then there's going to be a third, there's going to be a fourth. And now it's become almost the default that every new project, clean energy project that's being developed, is a gigawatt in size, minimum. And they built that scale and capacity from 13 megawatts, I think was the first size, of the Mohammed bin Rashid Maktoum solar park in Dubai. Going up to 1 gigawatt now is the default. And I talked about the hydrogen side earlier. Oman has something like a $49 billion investment into the first 2 levels of auction that they've done for their green hydrogen. And that's including something like 30 gigawatts of energy production capacity. And 30 gigawatts is, that's comparable to many small to medium-sized European countries, as they're adding as an addition to help them create a new economy and create a new market that is then providing those jobs. So having that certainty from government then provides the opportunity for the private sector to invest in developing skills with certainty.
Yeah, that market signaling, exactly. Well, I want to wrap it up there. I think it's been a very rich discussion. I think I could have an individual webinar with each one of you, and maybe we will plan to do that in the future. But for today, thank you so much. We've heard such great diverse perspectives from leadership, policy, recruitment, and education. I hope that the audience has found it helpful. And I hope that it's okay to say people can reach out to you with follow-up questions and things if they have any. But yeah, for today, thank you so much for your time, and really hope we see you all soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.